The quantum sensors on the stellar diplomat trembled with an unusual resonance. Captain Zixtal felt the subtle vibration through his exoskeleton, a sensation that immediately signaled something extraordinary was approaching. Deep space had always been full of mysteries, but this was different. The initial detection appeared unremarkable. A compact vessel emerging from the stellar background, its silhouette barely distinguishable from the cosmic dust and radiation. Most survey captains would have dismissed it as another piece of interstellar debris. But Zixtal had spent 3 decades navigating the complex borders of known space, and something about this contact felt unique. First Officer Renlock adjusted the spectral filters, his 4-fingered hands moving with practiced precision across the holographic interface. "Captain," he called, his voice carrying a note of professional curiosity. "The vessel's configuration does not match any known design in our galactic registry." The ship's computer began its systematic analysis. Spectral readings suggested a composition that defied standard metallurgical expectations. The hull seemed to shimmer slightly, not from any visible energy field, but as if the very molecular structure contained adaptive properties. It was almost organic in its responsiveness, yet clearly the product of advanced engineering. Zixtal zoomed the external sensors, watching the approaching vessel. Its lines were angular yet fluid, suggesting a design philosophy that balanced efficiency with an almost artistic sensibility. No standard propulsion signatures were immediately detectable, no plasma trails, no conventional ion drives, nothing that matched the technological standards of known spacefaring civilizations. "Prepare standard first contact protocols," Zixtal commanded, mandibles clicking with a mix of excitement and professional caution. The Galactic Conquests had encountered numerous emerging species, but something about this vessel suggested they were about to experience something remarkable. The communications officer, a young Vesperian named Krell, began transmitting standard greeting sequences, mathematical constants, prime number progressions, and universal physical laws, the typical language of peaceful initial contact. These signals had successfully initiated communication with 17 different species over the past century. Silence. Then, unexpectedly, a response began to form. But it wasn't a simple mathematical echo or a standard linguistic pattern. The incoming transmission seemed to be a complex, multi-layered communication that simultaneously existed on multiple frequencies and computational planes. "Linguistic matrix is struggling," Krell reported, a tremor of frustration in his voice. "The signal doesn't conform to any known communication protocol. It's adapting." Zixtal leaned forward, his sensory tendrils quivering with anticipation. The vessel, which their systems had provisionally labeled as UES Prometheus, continued its approach with a grace that seemed to defy traditional understanding of spaceflight mechanics. Preliminary scans suggested minimal armaments. The energy signatures were so low that they would be considered primitive by concordance standards. Yet something about the ship's movement suggested a depth of capability that couldn't be measured by conventional sensors. "Prepare a detailed sensor sweep," Zixtal instructed, "but maintain maximum non-intrusive parameters. We do not want to appear aggressive." The ship's advanced scanning systems began their meticulous work. Layer after layer of data began to compile, each new piece of information raising more questions than answers. The hull's molecular structure seemed to contain adaptive nanometric systems that could potentially reconfigure themselves in response to environmental stimuli. Propulsion systems showed quantum entanglement signatures that suggested capabilities far beyond simple linear movement. Renlock's voice cut through the mounting tension. "Captain, I've never seen anything like this. The vessel's technological signature suggests capabilities that shouldn't be possible with our current understanding of physics." As the stellar diplomat continued its careful approach, the UES Prometheus remained an enigma, a silent messenger from an unknown civilization that was about to challenge everything the Galactic Conquests thought they understood about technological development. First contact was moments away, and nothing would be the same again. The communication chamber of the stellar diplomat hummed with concentrated effort, Sophisticated translation algorithms, typically considered universal by Galactic Concordance standards, now seemed like primitive tools against the complex signal emerging from the human vessel. Krell, the young communication specialist, wiped a thin layer of perspiration from his scaled forehead. The incoming transmission defied every linguistic protocol in their extensive database. What initially appeared to be a simple mathematical sequence revealed layers of complexity that made traditional decryption methods look like children's puzzles. "It's not just a message," Krell explained to Captain Zixtal, his voice a mixture of frustration and professional excitement. "It's more like a living communication matrix. Each segment seems to modify itself based on our previous response." The holographic displays flickered with an intricate dance of symbols. Prime number sequences interwove with what seemed to be linguistic patterns, cultural references, and computational algorithms. Where most species communicated in linear, predictable fashions, this transmission behaved like an intelligent organism, constantly adapting and reshaping itself. Senior linguist Dr. Vornak, a veteran of countless first contact scenarios, leaned closer to the display. Her specialized neural implants, designed to process multiple linguistic streams simultaneously, were struggling to maintain coherence. "Fascinating," she muttered. "The communication structure suggests a level of contextual understanding that goes beyond traditional language." The human transmission contained mathematical constants that were familiar, but embedded within them were complex contextual layers. It was as if the message was simultaneously explaining itself, translating itself, and evolving in real time. Each attempt by the concordance systems to decode the transmission resulted in new, more intricate patterns emerging. "We're dealing with something unprecedented," Dr. Vornak announced. "This isn't just a language. It's a dynamic communication system that learns and adapts with each interaction." Captain Zixtal watched the increasingly complex display with growing fascination. The communication chamber, typically a place of precise, calculated exchanges, now felt more like a living laboratory of linguistic discovery. The human vessel's transmission was challenging fundamental understanding of communication itself. Krell's hands moved rapidly across multiple interface panels. "I've isolated some consistent patterns," he reported. "There are definite mathematical foundations, but they're integrated with what seems to be contextual and cultural information. It's like they're sending a language that explains itself while being transmitted." A breakthrough came unexpectedly. One of the junior communication analysts, a recently graduated Sinolinguist named Zara, noticed something unique. The transmission wasn't just sending information, it was creating a framework for mutual understanding. Each mathematical sequence was accompanied by contextual references that seemed designed to help the receiver comprehend the message's structure. "They're teaching us how to understand them," Zara whispered, her revelation cutting through the chamber's intense concentration. Dr. Vornak's neural implants suddenly sparked with recognition. The human transmission contained recursive patterns that suggested a profound understanding of communication as a dynamic, evolving process. Traditional universal communication protocols assumed a static approach. Mathematical constants, physical laws, basic representational systems. This transmission suggested something far more sophisticated. The human vessel, identified as UES Prometheus, continued its approach. Each moment brought new layers of complexity to their communication attempt. What should have been a straightforward exchange had become an intellectual challenge that pushed the boundaries of the Concordance's most advanced linguistic technologies. Captain Zixtal observed the ongoing efforts with a mixture of professional curiosity and growing respect. This was more than a first contact scenario. This was a fundamental reimagining of how intelligent species might communicate across the vast, complex landscape of interstellar space. As the stellar diplomat systems continued their intricate dance with the human transmission, one thing became increasingly clear. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, not with a weapon or a threat, but with a communication method so advanced it was challenging the very foundations of established interspecies dialogue. The universe, it seemed, was about to learn something entirely new about the art of communication. Standard protocol for the Galactic Conquests was clear and time-tested. When encountering a new spacefaring civilization, a carefully choreographed inspection maneuver would establish dominance and assess potential threats. Captain Zixtal had performed this procedure dozens of times, watching as emerging species typically responded with a mix of submission or feudal resistance. The escort ships of the Conquests fleet moved with practiced precision. 3 vessels, each a marvel of advanced engineering, began their standard approach vector toward the UES Prometheus. Their energy signatures pulsed with calculated intimidation, designed to demonstrate overwhelming technological superiority. Commander Elena Rodriguez watched the approaching ships with calculated calm. Her fingers hovered above the console, not with tension, but with a sense of clinical precision that seemed almost relaxed. Incoming approach, her second-in-command, Michael Chen, reported. His voice carried no hint of concern, merely a professional observation. The Conquests ships executed their maneuver with mathematical perfection. It was a dance of technological might that had subdued countless emerging civilizations. The lead vessel's energy fields expanded, creating a subtle containment zone that typically forced smaller ships into submission or defensive postures. Nothing could have prepared them for the Prometheus's response. It wasn't an attack. It wasn't even a traditional defensive mechanism. Instead, the human vessel seemed to ripple. The very fabric of its electromagnetic signature began to oscillate in a pattern that defied conventional understanding of physics. The Conquests escort ships suddenly found themselves paralyzed, not through weapon fire or traditional electromagnetic interference, but through a complex quantum-level disruption that momentarily suspended their operational capabilities. Status report, Captain Zixtal demanded, mandibles clicking with a mixture of confusion and growing concern. Renlock's hands moved frantically across the sensor panels. Impossible, he muttered. Our systems are being restructured. Not damaged, restructured. The disruption lasted mere seconds. When the Conquests ships regained full functionality, nothing appeared damaged. Yet every single system had been momentarily reset, recalibrated, and returned to full operational status with a precision that suggested more than a simple technological intervention. It was a demonstration, not of aggression, but of capability. On the Prometheus's bridge, Rodriguez allowed herself the slightest smile. Defensive Protocol Gamma, she said softly. Minimum intervention, maximum information. The communication specialists on the Stellar Diplomat watched in stunned silence. The human vessel had just neutralized 3 advanced warships without firing a single weapon, without causing any permanent damage, and without even appearing to exert significant effort. Dr. Vornak's neural implants worked overtime, analyzing the incident. It's not just a technological demonstration, she explained to the stunned bridge crew. It's a communication method. They're telling us something about their capabilities without using traditional language. The message was clear. We can neutralize you completely. But we choose not to. Captain Zixtal understood the subtext immediately. This was no ordinary first contact. The human vessel had just rewritten the entire paradigm of interstellar encounters with a single, elegant maneuver. Krell, the communication specialist, noticed something even more fascinating. The quantum disruption carried information, subtle, complex layers of data that seemed to be simultaneously an apology, an explanation, and a warning. It was as if the very method of neutralization was itself a form of advanced communication. They're showing us their technology is not about destruction, Dr. Vornak continued, but about understanding, adaptation, and precise control. The Prometheus resumed its original trajectory, seemingly uninterested in the momentary confrontation. It had made its point without aggression, without threats, and without causing any actual harm. In the vast, cold silence of space, humanity had just redefined the concept of first contact. The Galactic Conquests would never be the same again. The technical analysis chamber of the Stellar Diplomat resembled a hive of intense concentration. Holographic displays flickered with data streams that seemed to defy conventional understanding, each new piece of information raising more questions than answers about the human vessel. Senior technical analyst Dr. Vornak carefully manipulated the sensor data, her specialized neural implants working at maximum capacity. What should have been a straightforward technological assessment had become a profound philosophical challenge to everything the Galactic Conquests understood about engineering and systems design. "Look at the molecular structure," she called to her team, highlighting a particularly complex sensor reading. The hull of the Prometheus appeared to be more than a simple protective layer. Each molecular component seemed to contain adaptive nanometric systems that could potentially reconfigure themselves in response to environmental stimuli. Renlock, the ship's primary science officer, leaned closer to the display. "The adaptive capabilities are beyond anything in our current technological framework," he observed. "It's not just that the ship can change. The change itself appears to be a form of intelligent response." Preliminary scans revealed layers of complexity that challenged fundamental understanding. The propulsion systems showed quantum entanglement signatures that suggested capabilities far beyond simple linear movement. Where most spacefaring civilizations relied on predictable energy transfer methods, the Prometheus seemed to manipulate spatial dynamics in ways that bordered on the impossible. "The weapon systems are particularly fascinating," explained junior analyst Krell, pulling up a complex holographic representation. What initially appeared to be simple energy projection systems revealed themselves as multidimensional threat management networks. Each potential defensive or offensive capability seemed to exist in a state of quantum probability, simultaneously prepared for multiple scenarios. Dr. Vornak's analysis revealed something even more extraordinary. The ship's technological systems didn't just respond to threats. They predicted them. Advanced sensor algorithms suggested the vessel could potentially neutralize a threat before it fully materialized, operating on a level of predictive capabilities that seemed more like precognition than traditional defensive technology. "It's adaptive intelligence," she muttered, more to herself than to her colleagues. "Not just artificial intelligence, but a truly dynamic system that learns and evolves in real time." The technical team discovered that every system on the Prometheus was interconnected in ways that defied traditional engineering principles. Propulsion, defensive capabilities, communication systems, each functioned as part of a living, breathing technological ecosystem. Where most species designed rigid, predictable systems, humans had created something that more closely resembled a biological organism. Energy management was particularly perplexing. The ship seemed to generate and distribute power through methods that suggested a complete reimagining of quantum energy principles. Traditional power systems converted energy from one form to another. The Prometheus appeared to create, transform, and redistribute energy in a continuous, adaptive cycle. "We're looking at something more than technology," Renlock observed, his voice a mixture of professional excitement and genuine wonder. "This is a philosophical statement about the nature of technological development." Each layer of analysis revealed a deeper level of complexity. The communication systems they had struggled with earlier were now understood as part of a broader technological approach. Communication wasn't just about sending messages. It was about creating a dynamic, responsive system of mutual understanding. The Vesperian Technical Council would spend years analyzing the limited data from this encounter. What they had initially considered a simple first contact scenario was rapidly becoming a fundamental challenge to their understanding of technological development. Humanity had not just arrived in the galactic community. They had rewritten the very rules of technological possibility. As the final analysis reports were compiled, one thing became crystal clear. The universe had just become a much more interesting place. Captain Elena Rodriguez understood the power of subtlety. Her hands moved with calculated precision across the Prometheus's control interfaces, each gesture a carefully choreographed demonstration of technological capabilities that would challenge everything the Galactic Conquests thought they knew about spaceflight. "Prepare dimensional drift sequence," she said softly to her second-in-command, Michael Chen. The bridge crew moved with a synchronicity that suggested years of collective training and an almost intuitive understanding of their vessel's capabilities. The first movement began almost imperceptibly. To the external sensors of the stellar diplomat, the Prometheus seemed to shimmer, not with any traditional energy signature, but with a quantum-level oscillation that defied conventional understanding of spatial mechanics. Then, impossibly, the ship moved. It wasn't a simple jump or a standard faster-than-light translation. The Prometheus appeared to fold space around itself, creating a complex geometrical dance that challenged the very fundamental laws of physics. One moment it occupied a specific spatial coordinate. The next it existed in multiple potential locations simultaneously. Captain Zixtal and his bridge crew watched in stunned silence. The ship's movement was less about propulsion and more about a fundamental manipulation of spatial dynamics. Where most spacefaring civilizations understood movement as a linear progression from point A to point B, the Prometheus suggested a much more complex understanding of space itself. "Tracking systems are failing," Renlock reported, his voice a mixture of professional frustration and genuine wonder. The ship's sensors simply could not maintain a consistent lock on the human vessel. It existed in a state of quantum probability, simultaneously present and not present. The demonstration continued. Energy systems that had initially appeared modest revealed themselves as complex, multi-dimensional threat management networks. The Prometheus didn't just detect potential threats, it seemed to predict and neutralize them before they could fully form. A series of holographic displays began to populate the stellar diplomat's analysis screens. Each movement of the Prometheus generated complex data streams that seemed to explain and obfuscate its capabilities simultaneously. It was as if the ship was communicating through its very method of movement. Michael Chen's voice was calm, almost conversational. "Initiating Cascade Resonance Protocol." To the outside observers, this seemed to mean nothing. But the Prometheus began to generate a field of quantum interference that made traditional defensive systems look like primitive toys. Dr. Vornak's neural implants worked overtime, struggling to process the incoming data. "It's not just a technological demonstration," she muttered. "It's a form of communication more complex than any linguistic system we've ever encountered." The ship's movements suggested an intelligence that went beyond simple programmed responses. Each maneuver was a statement, each spatial translation a complex sentence in a language of pure technological potential. Suddenly, the Prometheus executed a maneuver that defied all known principles of spaceflight. It appeared to exist in multiple spatial coordinates simultaneously, its energy signature creating a complex interference pattern that was simultaneously a defensive mechanism, a communication attempt, and a pure demonstration of technological capability. Captain Rodriguez allowed herself the slightest smile. This was more than a first contact scenario. This was a profound statement about the nature of technological development. The Galactic Conquests had encountered many species. They had catalogued countless technological approaches. But humanity represented something entirely different. An approach to technology that was less about conquest and more about potential. As the demonstration concluded, the Prometheus returned to its original trajectory, as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. Yet everything had changed. In the vast, cold silence of space, humanity had just rewritten the rules of interstellar interaction. The universe would never be the same again. The data streams intercepted from the Prometheus began to paint a deeper picture of human civilization. What initially appeared to be simple communication signals revealed themselves as complex layers of cultural, technological, and philosophical information. Dr. Vornak's specialized analysis team worked tirelessly, piecing together fragments of intercepted transmissions. Each new piece of information challenged their fundamental understanding of technological and cultural development. Human communication was not a linear process. It was a dynamic, multi-layered system that seemed to evolve in real time. Mathematical sequences intertwined with cultural references, historical context, and what appeared to be adaptive learning protocols. Where most galactic civilizations developed rigid communication systems, humans had created something closer to a living, breathing intellectual ecosystem. The technological approaches revealed in the intercepted data suggested a civilization that viewed technology not as a tool, but as an extension of collective intelligence. Each system, each piece of technology seemed designed with an almost organic approach to problem solving. It wasn't about creating the most powerful device, but about developing the most adaptable, responsive solution. Cultural fragments suggested a civilization built on paradoxes. They demonstrated extraordinary technological capabilities, yet their transmissions were filled with references to creativity, empathy, and collective growth. Technical specifications would suddenly give way to artistic expressions. Scientific equations would be interrupted by philosophical musings. Renlock discovered something particularly fascinating. The humans seemed to deliberately design technological systems with built-in limitations, not out of technological weakness, but as a form of ethical constraint. Each advanced system contained multiple layers of fail-safe mechanisms, suggesting a deep-rooted commitment to responsible innovation. They're not just developing technology, he explained to the stunned research team. They're cultivating a relationship with their own technological capabilities. Intercepted historical records painted a complex picture. Human civilization appeared to have gone through multiple near-extinction events, each time emerging with increased resilience and innovative capacity. Their technological development wasn't a smooth progression, but a series of radical adaptations born from challenging circumstances. The communication specialists noted how human information systems seemed to prioritize diversity of thought. Where most galactic civilizations developed standardized knowledge bases, human databases appeared to deliberately preserve multiple, often conflicting perspectives. It was as if they viewed disagreement and variation as a fundamental source of innovation. Their approach to technological challenges defied conventional understanding. Problems were not seen as obstacles to be overcome, but as opportunities for creative reimagining. Each technological solution seemed to generate multiple new questions, creating a perpetual cycle of innovation and discovery. Philosophical undercurrents in the transmission suggested a civilization that viewed technological development as a collective journey. Individual achievements were celebrated, but always in the context of broader collaborative potential. Technology was not a means of domination, but a tool for collective advancement. The most surprising revelation came from their approach to first contact. While possessing overwhelming technological capabilities, the humans had chosen a path of subtle demonstration rather than aggressive display. Their entire encounter with the Galactic Conquests seemed designed to communicate potential rather than power. Dr. Vornak compiled her initial report with a sense of profound respect. "We are not just observing a technological civilization," she noted in her preliminary findings. "We are witnessing a fundamentally different approach to collective intelligence and technological development." The Prometheus continued its trajectory, seemingly uninterested in the intense analysis it had generated. Each moment of its journey was a silent statement about the nature of technological and cultural evolution. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and they had changed everything. The universe would never look the same again. The grand chamber of the Galactic Conquests was not designed for uncertainty. Massive crystal columns rose around a circular platform where representative species had debated galactic policy for millennia. Today, that chamber buzzed with an unprecedented level of tension. Representatives from 17 primary civilizations sat in carefully arranged sectors, each delegation processing the data from the human encounter. Holographic displays flickered with sensor readings, communication fragments, and technological analysis that defied conventional understanding. Ambassador Zornak of the Vesperian Diplomatic Corps stood at the central platform. His presentation was a carefully constructed overview of the encounter with the UES Prometheus. "We are confronting a technological paradigm that challenges every existing model of interstellar development," he began, his voice resonating through the chamber's advanced acoustic systems. The Krellian representative, a massive crystalline being, projected a series of technical diagrams. Their technological approach suggests capabilities that should be impossible. The crystalline form noted, its internal light pulsing with a mix of concern and fascination. We are looking at a civilization that does not merely use technology, but seems to have a symbiotic relationship with it. Debate erupted across the chamber. Conservative factions pushed for immediate containment protocols. More progressive representatives argued for careful diplomatic engagement. The human vessel had demonstrated extraordinary capabilities without showing any aggressive intent, a scenario completely outside established first contact protocols. The Quantum Diplomacy Council, typically the most measured of the Concordance's advisory bodies, was deeply divided. Their preliminary report suggested that the humans represented more than a potential threat or ally. They were a fundamental variable that could reshape galactic technological and cultural understanding. We cannot categorize them, argued Ambassador Elena Roskov, one of the few humanoid representatives present. Traditional threat assessment models simply do not apply. Holographic displays showed the Prometheus's technological demonstration on continuous replay. Each viewing revealed new layers of complexity. The ship's ability to neutralize multiple vessels without causing damage, its quantum movement capabilities, its adaptive communication systems, all suggested a level of technological development that was less about power and more about potential. The most conservative members of the Council demanded immediate defensive preparations. We cannot allow an unknown variable of this magnitude to exist unchecked, argued the Zentera representative, its multiple sensory tendrils contracting with visible tension. Counterarguments came swiftly. The data suggested that human technological capabilities far exceeded any potential defensive measures the Concordance could muster. Attempts at containment would likely prove not just futile, but potentially catastrophic. We are not dealing with a traditional spacefaring civilization, Ambassador Zornak continued. We are encountering a fundamentally different approach to technological and cultural development. Their entire encounter with us has been a form of communication, subtle, complex, and profoundly intelligent. The quantum diplomacy experts presented their most troubling analysis. The humans seemed to view technological development as a collaborative process, not a competitive one. Their capabilities suggested they could overwhelm the Concordance at any moment, yet they had chosen a path of subtle demonstration and potential mutual understanding. Hours of debate produced no clear consensus. The Prometheus continued its trajectory, seemingly uninterested in the intense deliberations happening in the wake of its encounter. Each moment of its journey was a silent challenge to established galactic paradigms. As the session approached its conclusion, one thing became abundantly clear. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and nothing would remain the same. The universe had just become a much more interesting place. The void of space held its breath as the UES Prometheus prepared its final communication. Captain Elena Rodriguez understood that this moment would define humanity's entry into the broader galactic community. Michael Chen's fingers moved across the communication console with practiced precision. "Transmission sequence ready," he reported, his voice calm and measured. Outside the ship, the gathered Concordance vessels waited with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. Sensor arrays strained to capture every nuance of the upcoming transmission, knowing that this moment would be analyzed for generations to come. The message began not with weapons or threats, but with a complex mathematical sequence that gradually unfolded into something far more profound. It was a communication that simultaneously explained, demonstrated, and invited understanding. Layers of information cascaded through space. Mathematical constants intertwined with cultural references, technological specifications merged with philosophical insights. Where most species would have sent a simple greeting, humans offered a comprehensive glimpse into their civilization's essence. Captain Zixtal watched in wonder as the transmission revealed humanity's approach to first contact. It was an invitation, not to submission, not to conflict, but to mutual understanding. The core of the message was elegantly simple. We are here. We are different. We seek understanding. Embedded within the transmission were glimpses of human history, Moments of near extinction followed by remarkable recovery. Technological leaps born from collective creativity. A civilization that had survived through adaptability, empathy, and an unquenchable curiosity about the universe. Dr. Vornak's analysis team worked frantically to process the incoming data. Each layer revealed something extraordinary. The humans were not just sharing information. They were creating a framework for mutual comprehension that transcended traditional communication barriers. The Prometheus demonstrated its ultimate capability through pure communication. Its very existence was a statement about potential, about the power of understanding over domination. Quantum communication protocols suggested something even more remarkable. The transmission was designed to be understood differently by each receiving civilization, tailored to their unique perceptual and cognitive frameworks. It was less a message and more a living, adapted form of communication. Ambassador Zornak, watching from the Concordance flagship, realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. Humanity had not just entered the galactic stage. They had redefined what that stage could be. The final segment of the transmission was a masterpiece of subtle diplomacy. It contained not just an introduction, but a profound philosophical invitation. An offer of collaboration that was simultaneously a demonstration of overwhelming capability and a genuine desire for mutual understanding. "We come from a small blue planet," the transmission explained, "but we understand that the universe is vast, complex, and filled with possibilities beyond our current understanding." Each receiving vessel experienced the transmission slightly differently. For some, it was a technical marvel. For others, a philosophical revelation. For a few, it was something that bordered on a spiritual experience. As the transmission concluded, the Prometheus began to move, not with aggression, not with retreat, but with a measured trajectory that suggested confidence, curiosity, and an open invitation for future interaction. The Galactic Concordance would spend years analyzing this moment. Scholars, diplomats, scientists, all would debate the profound implications of humanity's first true contact. Captain Rodriguez allowed herself a slight smile. They had accomplished exactly what they set out to do, not to conquer, not to intimidate, but to introduce humanity to the cosmos. In the vast, silent expanse of space, a new chapter of galactic history had begun. The universe had just become a much more interesting place.